Howdy folks, welcome to the 6th module of the Microsoft MD-102 course. Today's module, as you guys can see, is called Manage Endpoint Security. This module consists of 4 main sections we'll be diving into. The first of which is called Deploy Device Data Protection, followed by Manage Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Then we'll be moving on to Manage Microsoft Defender in Windows Client. And then the last main section we'll be diving into is Manage Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Alright, there you guys have it. The 4 main sections we'll be covering in this module. I've said it before and I'll say it again. That is not an indication of everything that will be covered in this module. If you'd like a more accurate list, you can find that in the video description down below, along with a whole bunch of other things. I've added nice convenient timestamps for you guys there. Now, considering all the effort I'm going through to go and add all those stamps and everything else I've been doing, the least you guys can do is give this video a like. So show some love, show some support. And then, of course, if you'd like to know when I release other videos, then obviously maybe subscribe. All right, let's go learn something. Okay, here we are at the first main section, Deploy Device Data Protection. The first thing we'll be discussing in this specific section is Windows Information Protection. So it's not something specific per se, but it does come down to protecting information on Windows. This can be on your actual machine itself, laptop, desktop, servers, or it could be in the cloud on a platform like Microsoft 365, for example. There is many ways we can go about protecting our data. There is many ways we can go and see what people are up to and when they're trying to go and, well, basically get up to some sort of shenanigans. So the first thing we're going to mention here is data loss prevention. So when it comes to data loss prevention, especially from a cloud perspective, if you look at something like Microsoft 365, this can in fact actually mean more than one thing. It could just mean, protecting your data in general, preventing loss, or it could be a matter of we're referring to data loss prevention policies. Now, in this instance, I'm actually referring more specifically to the data loss prevention policies. And let me tell you, folks, this is one of my personal favorite kinds of policies you get when we look at things like the cloud. So if you look at something like the cloud, there is so many kinds of policies. I mean, you get your archiving policies, your retention policies, and you get your compliance policies, especially in Intune, and then, of course, the data loss prevention policies. Now, before I tell you guys about this policy, let me give you a bit of a scenario. Imagine for a moment you are the IT guy at a company, and imagine for a moment you've got one user or one employee, only one, and imagine now that you need to keep an eye on what this person does. Now, I'm not saying this person is going to be up to go and do no good. I mean, absolutely not. Maybe this is a very good person. I mean, they've got a good heart. They're not up to any shenanigans, nothing of that kind. Whether they have a good heart or not, whether they're up to shenanigans or not, can you honestly tell me that you are able to keep an eye on this person the whole day and make sure they don't accidentally or maliciously share something outside the company? Now, I'm sure most of you guys will not be able to do that, even with one person. Now, how do you expect to do that when you've got a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand users? That's a whole different ballgame, wouldn't you say? So, with that in mind, that, folks, is where DLP comes into play. It's not the only way you can take care of this problem, but it is one of my personal favorite ways to take care of this problem. So using DLPs, you can go and specify what is known as conditions and actions. So these conditions are things that it's going to go and scan for. And if someone tries to share something outside the company with someone, something that's not allowed according to you or your company, it's going to detect that if that condition is met. Should a condition be met, an action will execute. And that action will basically go and do something that you specified. This can be something as simple and as easy as just displaying a nice little message that says, hey, my bra, you're about to share something that's not allowed. Or it could actually block the person, or it could block the person. They can go and override, or it could do this or that. There's a very, very long list of things it can actually go and do. So that is basically a run through of what DLP does. So it's rules to identify and categorize protected data. Now, if you go look at some of the manuals of 365 and Microsoft and stuff, they say this thing scans for up to 80 plus things. I assure you guys, it is not 80 plus things like some manuals might tell you. It's a heck of a lot more, and it's continuously growing that list. The last time I checked, it was well over 300. So it's over 300, 350 or 360 things that it can scan for now. And every month, or every second month, they're adding more and more and more things you can go and scan for. So this could be something as simple, honest to God, as a credit card number. So if someone in your company tries to share the company credit card number outside the company, and this is not allowed by you or your company, no dice, they will not be able to do that. So maybe, just maybe, they are allowed to share it amongst one another, amongst their peers and fellow colleagues, because it's for business purposes. But as soon as someone tries to share the company credit card number with someone outside the company, then a condition will be met. Should that condition be met, an action will execute. So if they share anything else outside the company, no condition is met. If they do share the credit card number, but it's only inside the company, no condition is met. But as soon as someone tries to share the credit card number, and it's outside the company, a condition would have been met. And then the action is going to go and execute whatever this action might be. My personal favorite just, of course, being blocking the user. I mean, rather safe than sorry, I always say. So these rules for what to do with the data when found. So that's basically one of the things it's going to go and do. So rules to identify something like a credit card number. And then the rules will allow you to go and specify what to do when it finds that. So that's the actions. Conditions, then actions. They actually call them conditions and actions. You'll actually see what it looks like once you go into the portal. And then here, one last thing I want to mention about DLP, can interfere with normal workflow. There's a chance. So the idea here, guys, is obviously to go and prevent data loss and to prevent something from accidentally being leaking outside the company. But ever so often, it doesn't happen that often, but ever so often, it does happen where you might accidentally interfere with normal workflow. Maybe someone really, really did want to share something outside the company for a valid company reason, and oopsie daisy, it's accidentally blocked by a DLP policy. This could be the company credit card number. Maybe you legit need to share it outside the company for legit reasons, and now the policy is blocking you. So if you have an action that just blocks the person outright, that might be a bit of a problem. So you'll see there's actually options that you can go and add that says overrule or overwrite. I don't recommend turning those on because you get a lot of users that think they know more than you. They're going to go and turn it on, and before you know it, oopsie daisy, something is shared outside the company that should not be shared. There's another option you can go and choose that says they can overwrite you, but they've got to give you a business justification first. Now, it's still not as good as just outright blocking them, in my opinion, but at least it's better than having nothing. So should the poop hits the fan eventually, then at least you can somewhat hold these people accountable. You can say, look. This guy said no, he's overwriting me or overruling me because of X, Y, and Z. So yeah, guys, that's a little bit more about the DLP side of things. Very, very fun to go and do that. It's something you do for the most part, go and specify on Microsoft 365, for those of you that's curious. You do unfortunately need a Microsoft or 365 E3 or E5 license. I think the last time I checked, you need to have an E5 license. I stand to be corrected. You're welcome to correct me in the comment section down below if I'm wrong. Microsoft is constantly changing their licenses, the benefits that goes with them. One day you'll have extra benefits, the next day you'll have less benefits. So yeah, the last time I checked, I think you need to have an E5 license, and in other words, an enterprise E5 license, and that's pretty much one of the most expensive licenses you get. That license will give you the DLP policies. So if you go on to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, the main one, you need to go to the Compliance Center, and once you go there, you'll find the navigation menu on the left. There you will, of course, find your data loss prevention policies. Now, something else you guys can go make use of when we talk about Windows information protection, it is something called Information Rights Management, better known as IRM for short. DLP, that's data loss prevention, so we call it DLP for short. And Information Rights Management, we call that IRM for short. Now, IRM has actually been around a lot longer. It's not bad to go and use, but I honestly do not recommend you go and use that. There's still some companies out there that actually uses this quite a lot, but you'll find that the companies that do still use this, a lot of them are actually in the process of phasing it out and replacing it with something better. Ironically, what they are replacing it with is DLP in a lot of these cases. DLP is a heck of a lot better. It's a heck of a lot easier to go and configure and manage, and everything about it is just better. Wow, I sound like I'm selling you guys something again. I assure you I'm not selling you something. It's just a fact. So the idea of information rights management is to control the actions of your users. You can think of this as NTFS permissions, if you know what NTFS permissions is. I can go and block them and allow them from sharing this or viewing this or doing this or doing that. So that's the idea. It's good in principle, but it's not very effective at doing it. Now, no policies or rules out there is ever going to go and completely stop a perpetrator or someone that's up to some sort of shenanigans. At the end of the day, the goal here, the mission here, is just to discourage bad behavior. So if we can discourage most people from doing this because it's such a big inconvenience to try and bypass it, well, technically that would be mission accomplished, wouldn't you say? So IRM is protection which travels with documents. Now that's pretty cool, but you can also achieve the same thing with sensitivity labels in 365, if you know what that is. It requires compatible apps and infrastructure to go and work. Neither DLP nor IRM remove data from employees' devices. That's always good to know. And then Windows Information Protection manages apps, data, and user access. And then lastly, Windows Information Protection works with Azure Rights Management Services, just in case you guys didn't know. So just to give you a little bit more background about this IRM that we keep talking about, this mythical tool, which I don't really want you guys to go and use. As I've said, it's basically you go and control users' actions, for lack of a better description. So if you look at something like, I don't know, let's say SharePoint. That's actually the place where I saw this most commonly, but you can also go and use this in places like email. So if you go and implement this on a place like SharePoint, for those of you familiar with SharePoint, you can go and, for example, block people from downloading a document. They can view it, but they cannot download it. They cannot share it. They cannot even go and press the print screen button to go and take a screenshot. So that sounds pretty good. It sounds all good and well, sunshine and rainbows, but there's a catch. It does not prevent them from taking screenshots with third-party programs. It does not prevent them from recording the screen. It does not prevent them from writing down the contents, memorizing the contents. Heck, it does not prevent them from taking a phone out or a camera and just taking a photo of the screen. So, at the end of the day, it's not very effective, but it does discourage people, and we're not exactly handing it to them on a silver platter, which is ideally what we want here. Now, moving on to the next topic, plan Windows Information Protection. Starting with the benefits side of things, Windows Information Protection, which is also known as WIP for short, allows you to separate work and personal data. This I personally find is very useful if you have users using some of their own personal devices for the purposes of work. Windows Information Protection allows you to protect your line of business apps. It gives you the ability to do selective wipe if you ever need to. So in other words, you can choose to a certain extent what you want to wipe on a person's device. It gives you auditing. So with auditing, Windows Information Protection gives you the ability to track and report on policy issues and actions performed in response to policy violations. Oh, and you can manage this awesome thing with good old-fashioned Microsoft Intune or, of course, Microsoft Configuration Manager. Now, where and when would one use this Windows Information Protection, you ask? Well, folks, let me give you some scenarios that Microsoft specifies. Windows Information Protection encrypts data on a device. What do I mean by that? Well, when copying or downloading organizational data from SharePoint, Microsoft OneDrive, network shares, or other locations using a device that is managed by using Windows Information Protection policies, Windows Information Protection policies encrypt the data on the device even if the device is personally owned. How cool is that? Another scenario we have here for you guys is you can control which apps can access corporate data. Apps that you have included on the allowed list can access organizational data, while apps that are not on the list have more limited capabilities. For example, if the policy is set to overwrite mode, when a user tries to copy data from an allowed app to a personal app, a warning notice will ask for a confirmation to perform a potentially unsafe action. A third scenario I have for you guys is that enlightened apps allow users to work with both personal and corporate data. Some apps, such as Word, they automatically detect when a file contains corporate data and should be WIP protected, and they maintain that protection when saving a file locally or on removable media. Now that's where it gets really interesting. This protection is maintained even if the file name changes or if the data is stored with unencrypted personal data. Now tell me if that doesn't sound useful. You can also prevent use of personal apps and services. You can prevent accidental release of organizational data to public spaces and social media by preventing users from using applications such as personal OneDrive to store files. You can also prevent users from copying data from allowed apps to Twitter or Facebook. You can protect devices that are lost, stolen, or that are owned by former employees. You actually have the ability, mind you, to remove organizational data and unenroll any devices that are enrolled in Intune, including personal devices, even if a device is lost or stolen. Now, something I want to point out about all of this nonsense I just mentioned to you guys, something, Microsoft brags here and there, hey, you have the ability to go and wipe this device, remotely or remove the data remotely. Microsoft brags about that quite a lot, as you guys would have heard me saying. Now, what Microsoft does not say, and they're probably going to kick me for saying this to you guys, is you do not actually have the ability to wipe a device if it's turned off. Or, God forbid, if this device is not connected to a mobile network or some sort of wireless network, it also doesn't work. What is the first thing a criminal normally does when they steal your device like your phone? They turn it off because they know you might call your own number to try and catch them red-handed. Now, if this device is turned off, or if it's not on any form of network of some kind, it cannot receive the instruction to wipe itself. So this remote removable of data and all that, it works, but it doesn't. It works if the device is just misplaced and is lying around somewhere and it's still on. Or if this is a former employee and is still using the device and it's still turned on. Yes, then it kind of works. But if the device is actually stolen, let me tell you guys, it doesn't really work. Microsoft's going to kick me for saying that. So I would recommend you use extra security on top of this. Maybe go and use some sort of encryption, Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Alright, I think that is enough of scenarios. Let's talk about implementing and using Windows Information Protection. Alright folks, so when you use Windows Information Protection, organizational data is automatically encrypted that you download to your local hard drive or that you open on your local hard drive. Encryption, like you can imagine, protects the file data and associates the data with your enterprise identity. WIP policies then specify which trusted apps can use and manipulate that data. You can define which are protected, the level of protection provided, and how to find organizational data on your network. When creating WIP policies, you can set up 4 WIP protection modes for managing access. The first mode is block or hide overrides. This prevents employees from performing data sharing actions when blocked by the policy. The second mode is allow overrides. This warns employees when they're performing a potentially risky action, but when they choose to complete the action is recorded to the audit log. The third mode is silent. This works like the previous one, which is allow overrides mode, except this one only records any action that an employee can override to the audit log. Any action that would be blocked, though, is still blocked. The fourth and the last mode is off. This one I think kind of speaks for itself. So Windows Information Protection is, well, turned off and it does not protect your data. Something you folks might come across when adding apps to the allowed apps list is rule templates. There are actually rule templates that you can go and make use of, which is, well, to make your work easier and less. I've noticed that Microsoft is pretty much making use of this concept on all kinds of policies these days. I mean, what are we talking about? Data loss prevention policies, these policies, that policies. Pretty much everywhere you go these days, there's some sort of template you can go and make use of, and it's at the end of the day, it's for the same reasons: to make your work easier, to make it less, and so you can get stuff done quicker and easier, of course. Right, let's move on. Encrypting file system in Windows client. So when we say encrypting file system, guys, this is more commonly known as EFS for short. So EFS is a built-in file encryption tool for Windows client. Now you get many kinds of encryption on the Windows client, but the two main kinds we normally talk about is EFS, which is what we have in front of us, and BitLocker. Now, coming at this specifically from an EFS perspective, this is for specific files and specific folders on the user's hard drive. So EFS is a built-in file encryption tool for Windows Client, like I said. Common usage scenarios for EFS is protecting files on shared computers. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's a bad encryption, guys, but you don't really get people using this as much as we used to. So if you go fast track a couple of years back in time, maybe 10 years or 20 years, back then a lot of people used to share computers in their households and of course in the office. And back then, if you were sharing a computer, chances are you may or may not have had files or documents and stuff that is for your eyes only. This can be like maybe a salary slip, pay slip. It can be some sort of medical records. It's something private. It is something confidential, which is for your eyes only. If you're sharing a computer, that becomes a bit of a conundrum, So because those other people, which is using that same computer, they might potentially see these files or documents of yours. Now, this is where EFS comes into play. The person that encrypts the file or the folder is the only person that can go and open the file or the folder. So if you've got a file or a folder on that computer, doesn't really matter if you're an admin or not. If you're the person that encrypts it, your account is the only account that can open that file or folder. Same goes when they log on to their accounts on that same machine. They can only open the files and folders that they encrypted, not yours. Doesn't matter whether they're an administrator or not. So anyway, getting back to common usages, this is protecting files from access by privileged users. So like I said, it doesn't matter which account is logged in. The account that's logged in is the one that can encrypt the folder, but that's the only one that can open that same folder. So it limits file access to specific users is what we're saying. So if I'm currently logged on my account and I go and encrypt a folder using EFS, only that account of mine can open that folder. If someone else logs on to a different account and they try and open my folder, it might appear as green text. You'll find that the text is now, instead of white or black, it'll be highlighted in green in some instances. But it's going to give them an error. It's going to say, denied access, access denied, something in that regard. And the same goes when they encrypt their own folders. I will not be able to access their folders. So in a nutshell, in a summary, EFS is for specific files and specific folders on a machine where you might potentially be sharing a machine, which is why we don't really use it anymore these days. Now moving on, here we've got BitLocker. So yeah, like I said earlier, you get many different kinds of encryption. The two main ones on the client side of Windows is EFS, which we just covered, and then of course BitLocker. Now EFS, as I've said before, is for specific files and folders on a hard drive. BitLocker, on the other hand, guys, is for a whole volume. It's for the whole freaking hard drive. And this is actually still very, very widely used till this day. EFS is not really in the exam, so if anyone needs to go write the exam, it's not really in the exam. BitLocker, on the other hand, we use it very, very much, very widely, everywhere, and there is many questions about it in the exam. So BitLocker provides protection by encrypting disk volumes, including the operating system and data volumes. So absolutely everything gets encrypted at BitLocker. It is very effective. BitLocker uses a TPM to verify the integrity of the startup process. If you don't know what TPM is, guys, it's an abbreviation which is short for Trusted Platform Module. It's an actual physical chip on the motherboard. Now, not all motherboards come out of this chip, just in case you're wondering. So back in the day, many, 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 many moons ago, when this still was very, very new, let's say 10, 20 years ago, probably about 20 years ago, hardly any motherboards had a TPM chip. So if you wanted to go and use this magical tool called BitLocker, you had to go and meet certain prerequisites, certain criteria, one of which is to have a TPM chip on your motherboard. If you did not have this TPM chip on your motherboard, you would not be able to use BitLocker. It's a bit of a bummer, isn't it? So hardware-wise, you need to have a TPM chip, a smart card reader, and then obviously digitally wise, this was a certain list of prerequisites you had to meet as well. One of which is to have the correct operating system. So if you look at this from a Windows 10 and Windows 11 perspective, you would normally have to have Professional Enterprise Edition. Any lower editions would not have BitLocker as a benefit or a feature, guys. So anyway, moving on. Both BitLocker and EFS provide encryption, as we said before. It's not the only kinds, but from the client side, it's the only ones you need to know about. BitLocker to go. Yes, I said BitLocker to go, not BitLocker. BitLocker to go, that's a different one. Extends BitLocker support to removable storage. Now, if you don't know what that statement means, you get BitLocker and you get BitLocker to go. BitLocker is something you would use for something internal, like an internal hard drive, an internal volume. So that will be the hard drive inside your laptop or inside your desktop PC. BitLocker to go, on the other hand, is something you would use on any form of storage that's removable, like a removable hard drive, an external hard drive, or a removable flash drive. So flash drives, some of you guys might call these USB sticks, thumb drives. That's where you would use BitLocker to go. Something that you're able to take and go. BitLocker is something you would use for an internal hard drive. And as soon as we go and add the words to go to it, then it's something that is removable. All right, and then just back to the requirements of BitLocker. So I'm just going to go and add that here for you guys. BitLocker original requirements. I did actually mention to you guys this earlier. So back in the day when BitLocker originally came out, like I said earlier, you needed to meet certain requirements to be able to use this great thing. What are those requirements? I'm going to list them here for you guys. It was a TPM, the Trusted Platform Module. That's the actual chip on the motherboard. You needed to have a smart card, and then you needed a smart card reader to read said smart card. All of these requirements were quite difficult to get your hands on, and they were very, very expensive. So a lot of companies wanted to use BitLocker, not really people in their personal capacity. This is more for companies. So companies wanted to make use of it, but it would cost them an arm and a leg. It was too expensive to go and use. So they had to come up with other requirements, So as for the TPM, they said, okay, boys, let's go back to the table. What can we come up with to allow people to use this great tool of ours without it costing them an arm and a leg? So as for the TPM, a solution they came up with back in the day, not sure who this was, is group policies. So if you go into your group policies on your machine, there's a group policy you can go and turn on. It's called Allow Additional Authentication at Startup. And that effectively allows you to go and use BitLocker without a compatible TPM chip. So it's not as good as the actual encryption from the actual chip, but it's better than having no encryption, is it not? Now, having a TPM chip, guys, obviously the encryption is better, but it also gives you many, many other benefits. So these days, if you have a choice, I would recommend using the TPM chip method. Now, as for the smart card, that is supposed to symbolize or represent something that the person has physically on their person. So they said, guys, well, what can we come up with to allow people to use BitLocker, but, not having to use an actual smart card, but something that acts like a smart card? And I said, you know what? Everybody's got a flash drive these days, so why not use a flash drive? So you can actually go and use a memory stick, a thumb drive, a flash drive, whatever you want to go and call this. You can use that as if it's a smart card. So you don't need a smart card, which is very expensive. You don't need a reader for that smart card, which is also very expensive. Instead, guys, you can use a flash drive. Yep. So anyway, the 3 requirements that I've listed there, why am I listing them for you guys? Why are we going down this memory lane? Because that is a question in the exam. It's in the pool. Some of you guys might get it. Some of you guys might not get it. Normally, they're going to list about 6 or 8 possible choices. And out of those 6 or 8 possible choices, you need to choose all the original BitLocker requirements, even though nobody actually still uses this anymore. And there you go. That's the original BitLocker requirements. Now, obviously, there's a little bit more to that. I mean, in real life, it's not just the hardware. You obviously need to go look at the operating system as well. You need to have the right edition of Windows to be able to go and use BitLocker. Just because you've got the hardware doesn't mean you can go and use BitLocker. Have to have the right edition of Windows. Now, they don't really ask that in the exam from what I've seen. Alright guys, so that finally brings us to the end of the first main section in this module. Let's move on to that second main section, which was called Manage Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. The first topic we're going to be talking about in this section, folks, is, well, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is a platform designed to help enterprise networks prevent, detect, investigate, and respond to advanced threats. Unlike Microsoft Defender, which is available on each Windows computer and managed by group policy or Intune, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is a whole new platform, folks, that helps administrators enhance security, as well as establish centralized security control over both cloud and on-premises resources. So the name it's very similar, but it's not exactly the same. So the one is Microsoft Defender, the other one is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Very big difference between the two, guys. Although Microsoft Defender for Endpoint shares the same name with Microsoft Defender in Windows, like I said, these are not the same products. Administrators can use Microsoft Defender for Endpoint to monitor Microsoft Defender functionalities on local Windows clients to maintain consistent configuration and an acceptable security level, of course. However, besides this, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, that's the new one, can also integrate with Microsoft 365, Threat Intelligence, Cloud App Security, Azure Advanced Threat Protection, and Intune. It's also capable of detecting potentially harmful content in Microsoft Teams communications. How cool is that? Microsoft Defender for Endpoint uses the following combination of technologies built into Windows and Microsoft's cloud service. The first is endpoint behavioral sensors. Embedded in Windows, these sensors collect and process behavioral signals from the operating system and send this sensor data to your private isolated cloud instance of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. The second technology is cloud security analytics. Using big data, machine learning, and unique Microsoft optics across Windows ecosystem, enterprise cloud products such as Microsoft 365 and online assets, behavioral signals are translated into insights, detections, and recommended responses to advanced threats. The third technology on the list, folks, is threat intelligence. This is generated by Microsoft hunters, security teams, and augmented by threat intelligence provided by partners. Threat intelligence enables Microsoft Defender for Endpoint to identify attacker tools, techniques, and procedures and generate alerts when these are observed in collected sensor data. These technologies I just listed for you, folks, combined together provide efficient, proactive monitoring of what happens on your client machines, servers, and network. They perform automated investigations on well-known incidents and provide some actions even before an administrator is alerted. How cool is that? So there's going to be cases, guys, where certain things is going to happen in the background, some sort of shenanigans, an incident, if you want to call it that. And these technologies will start looking into the matter. It's going to start taking actions on the matter before you even know about it. Now that is something that's going to be useful, especially if you're busy somewhere else. I mean, heck, you could be at home watching a movie on Netflix, and this can be happening in the background, and this thing is already going to start taking care of business for you. Alright, folks, let's take a look at some of the key capabilities of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. It provides you with attack surface reduction. That's just the first pillar, if you want to call it that. The attack surface reduction set of capabilities provide the first line of defense in the stack by ensuring configuring settings are properly set and exploit mitigation techniques are actually applied. This set of capabilities resists attacks and exploitations. Attack surface reduction capabilities in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint help protect the devices and applications in your organization from new and emerging threats. Another capability is the next generation protection it provides. To further reinforce the security perimeter of your network, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint uses next generation protection designed to catch all types of emerging threats. Microsoft Defender Antivirus is a built-in anti-malware solution that provides next-generation protection for desktops, portable computers, and servers. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint provides you with endpoint detection and response. Endpoint detection and response capabilities, folks, are put in place to detect, investigate, and respond to advanced threats that may have made it past the first two security pillars we've just mentioned. The Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, endpoint detection, and response capabilities provide near real-time actionable advanced attack detections, which basically enable security analysts to effectively prioritize alerts, unfold the full scope of a breach, and take responsive actions to remediate the threat as quickly and as efficiently as possible. In conjunction with being able to quickly respond to advanced attacks, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint offers automatic investigation and remediation capabilities that help reduce the volume of alerts in a minutes at scale. So this is pretty much what I said earlier, so I'm just repeating myself. The Microsoft Defender for Endpoint service has a wide breadth of visibility on multiple machines. With this kind of optics, guys, the service generates a multitude of alerts. The volume of alerts generated can be challenging for a typical security operations team to individually address at times. So yeah, to keep an eye on all of this could be a little overwhelming at times, but it's not too shabby. You also get the capability of Secure Score, which is one of my personal favorites. It provides a security posture of your company. So basically how this works, guys, is it's going to give you a score, if you will, of your company. Now the score is not necessarily good, it's not necessarily bad. It's going to give you a score for your company based on all kinds of things you've put in place security-wise. Settings, configurations, softwares, this and that. It's going to give you a score based on that, and it's going to compare your score to the score of other companies that's more or less in the same industry as you, and it's got more or less the same amount of users and stuff as you. In other words, companies as close as possible to you. And using that comparison, you can kind of sort of get an idea as to where you are in a ballpark. Whether you're doing a good job, whether you're not doing a good job. So if your score is below average, then you know, okay, you've probably got to go look at a couple of things. If your score is average, then you know, okay, you're not too bad. If your score is above average, then you know, okay, cool, I'm doing a great job. Now, guys, just because you have a bad score, if you have a bad score, that does not necessarily mean you can actually go and do something about it. So depending on the industry you're in and where you are, what country you're in, what state or province you're in that country, all that kinds of stuff, sometimes you'll find there is nothing you can do about it. And this is purely because of the country you're in or, those situations. There's various variables at work here. So you might see the problem, you might know what the problem is, you might even know what the solution to that problem is, but because of some local law or regulation or this or that, you're not allowed to go and change certain settings. This can be somewhat frustrating at times. Now, what's pretty cool about this secure score, never mind it giving you a score and all that kinds of jazz, it actually tells you what is bringing your score up. It tells you what is bringing your score down. Some things affect your score very, very heavily. Some of them bring it up a lot or bring it down a lot. Some of them hardly at all, and some of them literally count for zero. I kid you not, it actually even lists stuff that counts for zero. It's weird. Now, if you do have something that's bringing down your score, it'll actually tell you why it's bringing your score down. And where it gets really cool is it actually tells you what you can go and do and where you can go and do it to fix that issue. So you can be someone that's got no experience on a certain capability. You have never done it before, and it'll tell you step by step where to go and do it and what to go and do. Now that is really useful if you've got so many things you have to go and do in places like 365. Alright folks, and then the second last one of the capabilities I'm going to list for you is advanced hunting. This capability allows you to hunt for possible threats across your organization using a search and query tool. You can also create custom detection rules based on queries you created and surface alerts in Microsoft 365 Security Center. The last one I'm going to list for you guys is management and APIs. This capability allows you to integrate Microsoft Defender for Endpoint into your existing workflows. Defender supports a wide variety of options to ensure that customers can easily adopt the platform. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint folks has granular control to fit varying environments and requirements. Well, there you have it, folks. There is a list for you of the capabilities. Now, let's move on to the next topic. Windows Defender, Application Control, and Device Guard. You know, folks, I sometimes feel like I'm in a dream. I mean, not too long ago, the only thing we as IT people had to worry about was users and the devices on premises. Times were simple back then. Now, these days, things are evolving and changing so darn quickly, it's hard to keep up with it all. I mean, it's just nearly impossible these days. Anyway, with all of that in mind, every day now there is thousands of new malicious files created, if not more. If you're going to use your traditional solutions like antivirus, then you're in for, well, a rude awakening. It's no longer going to be enough, guys. They no longer provide enough protection and defense against these attacks. I mean, they are still way better than having no antivirus. I mean, you should definitely have an antivirus, don't get me wrong, but having just an antivirus is not going to cut it. It's definitely not going to help you. You should still have it, but you need more. You definitely need more. Now, getting to the topic at hand here, this application control and device guard provides you with an extra layer of protection against unknown threats. Yep. Will it stop all threats out there? Heck no, definitely not. It's just an extra layer of protection, folks. It's way better than just having an antivirus. But it obviously in no way means you're going to stop everything out there. That is unfortunately something we'll never be able to do, in my opinion. You're never going to stop a hacker out there. You're never going to stop all the malicious threats out there. We simply want to make it so darn gosh difficult for them to the point where they give up and to the point where we can just consider our security reasonable. Looking more specifically at Windows Defender application control, normally, folks, when a user runs a process that has the same level of access to data that the user has, as a result, sensitive information could easily be deleted or transmitted out of the organization if a user knowingly or unknowingly runs malicious software. Application control, on the other hand, it moves away from the traditional application trust model, where applications are assumed trustworthy by default, to one where applications must actually earn trust in order to run. Yes, that's right. Applications must actually earn trust. It sounds silly, but I assure you it's a real thing, folks. Instead of assuming all applications are trustworthy, applications must earn trust in order to run. There is also the matter of signed or manifest of accepted executables. How cool is that? Looking at the device guard side of the coin, device guard, folks, combines the features of application control with the ability to leverage the Windows Hyper-V hypervisor to protect Windows kernel mode processes against the injection and execution of malicious or unverified code. Now, folks, while VDAC doesn't require specific hardware or software, enabling hypervisor protected code integrity does require compatible hardware and drivers. Oh, and for those that don't know, hypervisor protected code integrity, which I just mentioned, is referred to as HVCI for short. So that's what I've written down there. Alrighty, let's move on to Microsoft Defender Application Guard. Looking at the Microsoft Defender Application Guard, this is designed to help prevent old and newly emerging attacks to help keep employees productive. Using Microsoft's unique hardware isolation approach, the goal of Application Guard is to destroy the playbook basically that attackers use by rendering the current attack methods obsolete. With Application Guard, it leverages hypervisor to protect kernel mode processes. Really cool. This application guard, folks, is designed for Windows and Microsoft Edge. If anyone actually uses Edge, I know I, for one, don't use it. But some of you guys might. We all are unique. We all have our own preference. Anyway, so Application Guard, guys, helps to isolate enterprise-defined untrusted sites, protecting your company while your employees browse the internet. As an enterprise administrator, you define what is among trusted websites, cloud resources, and internal networks. Everything that is not on your list is actually considered untrusted. Now, that is pretty rad. If an employee goes to an untrusted site through either using Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer, there we go again, Microsoft browsers, Microsoft Edge opens that site. Microsoft Edge opens that site in an isolated Hyper-V enabled container, which is separate from the host operating system. This container isolation, it means that if the untrusted site turns out to be malicious, the host PC is protected and the attacker can't get to the enterprise data. Now, if you still don't understand what that means, you can basically think of this as a bomb, where you go and put it in a special box. Kind of like when the bomb squad comes out and they put it in a special box, poking a beehive, but you're going to go and put that beehive in a special container first. And if there turns out to be bees in that hive, then at least the bees can't sting anyone. Same thing with a bomb. They're going to put it in a box, so if God forbid something happens and it goes kablooey, then at least it doesn't damage any property and nobody gets hurt. So now in this case, when you're going to go to a website using Internet Explorer or Edge, I really don't like those browsers. I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with them. Let me just say it's preference. But if you were to go and use Internet Explorer or Edge, I mean, nobody uses those two browsers. And if you were to go and visit the site, it's going to go and open it in a special container. Let's just put it that way. Open it in a special container. And if it turns out to be a not so nice site, that site can't do any harm because, well, it's kind of locked down in a special container. Really cool, right? So Application Guard has been created to target several types of system, folks. These are systems like enterprise desktops and enterprise laptops, and then also, of course, personal and managed BYOD devices. If you don't know what BYOD stands for, remember that stands for bring your own device. So that's people that use their own phones, tablets, laptops, desktops for the purposes of work. Alrighty, moving on to the topic of Windows Defender Exploit Guard. First of all, folks, this Windows Defender Exploit Guard is no longer called that. The name is now Microsoft Defender Exploit Guard. The word Windows in the front part of the name has now been changed to, well, Microsoft. Yeah, I know. It's a silly change, but the folks over at Microsoft, they can't seem to make up their mind about a lot of small silly things like that. It happens very often, so what can I say? It's Microsoft. Anyway, this Exploit Guard is a new set of host intrusion prevention capabilities for Windows, allowing you to manage and reduce the attack surface of apps used by your employees. Really useful, I must say. There are 4 key features in Exploit Guard, folks. The first is called Exploit Protection. This applies exploit mitigation techniques to apps your organization uses, both individually and to all apps. It works with third-party antivirus solutions, and it also works with Windows Defender. So that's going to make your life a little bit easier. The second key feature is Attack Surface Reduction. The name of this feature alone should kind of sort of tell you what you need to know about it, but in case you don't, it reduces the attack surface of your applications with intelligent rules that stop the vectors used by Office, script, and mail-based malware. It does, however, require Microsoft Defender Antivirus, so yeah, just take note of that little detail there in case you didn't know. The third key feature is Network Protection. This extends the malware and social engineering protection offered by Microsoft Defender Smart Screen in Microsoft Edge to cover network traffic and connectivity on your organization's devices. This also, however, unfortunately, requires Microsoft Defender Antivirus once again. The fourth and the last key feature, folks, is controlled folder access. This protects files in key system folders from changes made by malicious and suspicious apps, including file encrypting, ransomware, malware. Can you folks guess what this fourth feature requires? It once again also requires Microsoft Defender Antivirus. Yep. Alrighty, folks, moving on to System Guard, or should I say Windows Defender System Guard. You'll notice that we've been talking a lot about Windows Defender. I bet you guys didn't know, but Windows Defender was actually this big and contained so many functions and features and side branches and stuff. Yep, it is everywhere, guys. It's gotten massive. Now, getting back to the topic at hand here, if we go back in time, folks, to the time of Windows 7, for example, one of the things attackers would do to avoid detection was to install what is often called a bootkit. Sometimes it's called a rootkit on your PC. So this is back in the day of Windows 7 and earlier. This malicious software back in the day would then actually start up before your Windows started up, and this, as you can imagine, was a massive problem at the time. It gave attackers the highest level of privilege. So, in a nutshell, it's stuff that starts up before your Windows starts up and before anything else starts up, including your antivirus. And that is a bit of a problem because now they've got full-blown access on your machine. Now, don't panic, folks. Before you go into panic, there is some good news here. Since Windows 8 came out, wow, sound like I'm promoting something here. So since Windows 8 came out, so this obviously includes Windows 10 and 11, this issue has now been addressed by Microsoft. Thank goodness for that. So with modern hardware that is now obviously Windows 8 certified or greater, there's a hardware-based root of trust that helps ensure that no unauthorized firmware or software such as these rootkits we spoke of that we mentioned earlier, none of those can start up before Windows starts up. This is where System Guard comes into play. The System Guard basically ensures that only properly signed and secure Windows files and drivers can start up at the beginning during a startup. It is a very effective form of security which most people don't even know exists, come to think of it, and yet it is happening everywhere on almost everybody's computers. It is sad to know that we've got this awesome functioning protecting us, and yet nobody knows about it. Kind of sad, right? So just to summarize a bit before we move on, guys, System Guard reorganizes the existing Windows system integrity features under one roof and sets up the next set of investments in Windows security. System Guard helps protect and maintain the integrity of the system as it starts up. System Guard helps protect and maintain the integrity of the system after it's running too, mind you. And lastly, System Guard helps ensure the system integrity is maintained through local and remote verification. Well, folks, and that brings us finally to the end of the second main section in this module. As you can see, this module is way longer than most of the previous ones we've covered thus far in this course, and that is simply due to this module having more sections and also because it has more content. I am unfortunately not the one that decides what content is in the modules, at least not with my videos. I really just deliver the modules with what they originally had in them, and this module just happens to have a lot of sections and a lot of content, which is why it's so long, in case you're wondering. Anyway, now moving on to the third main section, folks. Manage Windows Defender in Windows Client. So that's your normal laptops and desktops. We're not talking about any fancy Windows Defender in the cloud. No, none of that. We're talking about a normal laptop or desktop, that Defender on there, on your Windows 10 or on your Windows 11. That's the one we're talking about. Now, you might think, oh, okay, cool, I've seen Windows Defender, but you'll be surprised to know how many functions and features it actually has built into it, and we're going to dive into that now in this section. Just by the way, if anyone is still watching at this point in the video, please remember to give the video a like, and if you feel like playing a bit of a game to have some fun here on the side, in the comment section down below, guys, type a random sentence from any one of the Ice Age animation movies. Yep, this will obviously confuse the heck out of some folks that's just browsing through the comment section and they didn't actually watch the video up until this point in time. But, you know, we can have a little bit of a gag about it. We can have a little fun with them. Anyway, so yeah, please keep your random sentences PG. No swearing or anything weird like that, guys. Keep it PG. And yeah, this basically just has to be some sentence from any one of the Ice Age movies. Something funny, preferably. Let's have some fun with it. Alright, now that I have the game instructions covered, let's have a look at the first topic in this third section of the module. Windows Security Center. Well, folks, Windows Security Center is a component of Windows 10 and later that covers all aspects of security for the operating system, accounts, and applications being used on a specific device. This Windows Security Center covers a lot of things, folks. If you look at the picture on the right there, you'll see only some of the many things that it actually covers and does. To give you a better idea of what it covers, let me give you a list, just in case they ask you about this in the exam, and my suspicions is you will get asked about this in the exam. Windows Security Center covers virus and threat protection, which helps obviously handle all the antivirus and anti-malware tasks of your machine. It covers things like account protection, which allows you to configure account sign-in options, as well as Windows Hello sign-in options and dynamic lock settings. It covers firewall and network protection, which you can go and use to manage Windows Firewall and configure applications that must communicate through firewall and also set up domain profiles for firewall. It covers app and browser control. With this, you can configure the Microsoft Defender Smart Screen feature that helps you protect a device by proactively checking for unrecognized apps and files from the internet. Windows Security Center also covers device security. With this, you can find information about processor core isolation, process security, TPM, and secure boot features. Windows Security Center covers device performance and health. This allows you to check if Windows is up to date and also to check for other issues that can impact general device health. Heck, you can also check for storage capacity problems, device drive issues, battery life issues, and much, much more. Security Center also covers family options, which you can go and use to review and configure available options for family safety and parental control. Now, I, for one, personally don't know a soul alive out there that uses this benefit, but you never know. Just because people doesn't use it doesn't mean it's bad. It simply means I just don't know anyone that actually uses this. And I actually know a lot of people that has got kids. It's just not a very popular option. Anyway, the last thing I'm going to list for you folks here, which Security Center covers, is protection history. This is more for Windows 11, if I'm being honest, and newer. It's not really for Windows 10, but if you really are looking for this on Windows 10, you can still find it. You can find it under virus and threat protection in Windows 10. Oh, and what does it do? Well, it basically just lists recent threats that you've encountered and any recommended actions that you might want to go and take regarding those threats, so to speak. Now, before we move on, let me just give you folks a quick peek at a bigger, better image of what this recently looked like on Windows Security Center. So there's a picture for you guys, nice and big. When looking at this picture, guys, just keep in mind what I'm showing you. It may or may not look like this by the time you go in there. Microsoft is constantly changing, flipping everything. Today it'll look like this, tomorrow it'll look entirely different. So at the end of the day, the concept still stays the same. The information is still valid, so you don't have to worry about that. But regarding where you find this button or that button, yeah, it is gonna move. I can guarantee you guys that. So by the time you watch this video, some of the stuff might have moved, it might not have moved. You never know with Microsoft, but at least you know the information is still valid. Alright, folks, let's move on to the next topic, Microsoft Defender Antivirus. Now, something interesting about Microsoft Defender, folks, is it's actually been around for a while. If you go look at previous Microsoft operating systems, like, for example, Windows 8, you'll find it is there. Now, where it gets cool is from Windows 10 onwards, Windows Defender is now also a full-blown antivirus. As long as you keep your Windows up to date, your Windows Defender antivirus will also be up to date. You can, however, manually also just go and, well, download the definition files if you want to, just like a normal antivirus. It's really as simple and as easy as just going to a search engine of your choice, like Google, and just typing in Windows Defender definition download, and boobity bop, there you go. It's like one of the first links there in the results. And you just choose 64-bit or 32-bit. It's probably going to be 64-bit. And there you go, guys. It's as easy as that. The download is normally somewhere between 80 megabytes and 250 megabits. And how long it takes to install is literally just like 1 or 2 seconds. Once you've double-clicked it, it's going to look like nothing is happening. And if you go check your Defender, you'll see it's actually now up to date, even though it looks like nothing took place. Now, like most third-party antiviruses, Microsoft Defender Antivirus helps protect your computer from spyware, malware, viruses, and it is Hyper-V aware, mind you. I have to say though, not all third-party antiviruses are Hyper-V aware, but everything else I just mentioned, when it comes to protecting you against spyware, malware, virus, and all that stuff does apply to third-party antiviruses as well. Now, like most typical antiviruses, you can use Microsoft Defender Antivirus to run quick, full, or custom scans, and you can also choose to exclude processes in your scan, so that's nothing new. But it is nice to know that you can go and do that. When it comes to configuring your Windows Defender Antivirus, besides doing it directly, which is very easy, mind you can also go and use several tools, which include, but is not limited to, Microsoft Intune, of course, and then also, of course, Microsoft Configuration Manager. Both of these should come as no surprise. Those are not the only tools, but those are the most popular ways to go and get things done. And that, folks, is pretty much it for the antivirus part of Defender. It's pretty much straightforward, just like this next topic, which is Microsoft Defender Firewall. First of all, folks, this was not always called Microsoft Defender Firewall. Up to Windows 10, this used to just be called, well, Windows Firewall. That's it. For a very long time in Windows 10, this was the case, and then one day, randomly on Windows 10, the name just changed. So instead of it being called Windows Firewall, it was suddenly called Windows Defender Firewall or Microsoft Defender Firewall. And this happened when Microsoft released one of those big fat updates. They release like once every 6 months or so. I believe they call them feature updates. And they go and add a lot of stuff and remove a lot of stuff and change a lot of stuff. And one of the things they did is they went and changed the name. Everything else, though, about the firewall still remained exactly the same. The logo even still looks the same. It is just the name that changed, guys. So these firewall settings can be accessed from Windows Security Center or in Control Panel, in Network and Sharing Center, and Security Items. Basically, you can get to the firewall settings via many ways, folks. I just listed some of them for you, but in reality, you can access this via like a million and one ways. I can think of quite a few other ones as well now. When it comes to managing your firewall, besides doing it directly, you can also once again make use of something like Microsoft Intune, just like with the antivirus side of things. The only catch here, of course, is if you'd like to manage devices, and things like their firewall, these devices needs to be enrolled into your company's Intune environment. If they're not enrolled into your company's Intune environment, you cannot go and configure things on them like their firewall settings. But that is something you guys should know by now because we did mention that quite a few times in the previous modules. There are three types of network profiles you will encounter in the firewall. Well, at least that's usually how many there are. I've actually seen 4 just the other day, but that is besides the point. We're not going to talk about all 4 of them. So on the average machine, it's going to depend on whether it's joined to a domain or not. So if you've got a machine which is on a work group, in other words, it has not been joined to a company domain yet, you will see 2 profiles that you can go and choose and configure. If the machine has been joined to a domain, like a company domain, you'll probably see 3 profiles. So the 3 profiles are, of course, domain, the one I just mentioned. So assuming, of course, this device has been joined to domain, or otherwise, you won't see this option. And then also you've got private and then, well, public. Well, that, folks, is pretty much all there is to it. That brings us to the end of the third section in this module. It was luckily a very short section, and the next one will also be a very, very short section. Luckily, thank goodness, because my voice is about to disappear of this module being so long. It's only the first 2 sections in this module which was very long. So, yeah. Alright, let's move on to that last and 4th section, manage Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. So with regards to this, Microsoft Defender for cloud apps is a versatile cloud access security broker solutions with advanced features for extensive visibility and control along with sophisticated analytics to detect and mitigate cybersecurity threats. So that is something you may not have known. You can see the abbreviation is CASB. So that is what it's called in short. It's really, some people refer to the abbreviation. Some people call it by its long name. I suppose it depends on the people. So it provides extra safeguards for cloud services by enforcing enterprise security policies, brokering access, and monitoring user activities. Now, this is not very popular yet, but it is very quickly becoming very popular. I haven't really encountered a lot of clients at this point in time that actually makes use of this. Like I said, yet, that's the key word. So it's just because it's new. It's given enough time, watch this space, more and more people are going to start using this, guys. It offers a broad range of capabilities that safeguard your environment across multiple pillars, including, but not limited to, visibility, data security, threat protection, and of course, compliance. So there you have it. So there's just some of the pillars, not limited to those. That's just to give you guys a bit of an idea. And when it comes to planning for Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps is now actually part of the Microsoft 365 Defender. Yep, in case you didn't know, the Microsoft 365 Defender portal actually allows security admins to perform their security tasks in one location. Now, Microsoft's been doing that a lot lately. You'll find there's a lot of tasks that you have to go and do here, there, and everywhere. And as much as possible, as often as possible, they'll try and consolidate various actions into one location. This is not because they want to confuse the users, although that actually does tend to happen. It's not on purpose. I mean, obviously, if you're going to be moving stuff around, people are bound to get a little lost and confused. That even includes myself, guys. I'm throwing myself into this boat. But at the end of the day, it's for a good reason. It's going to take you a little short while just to get familiar with the new platform where they moved it to. And once you've gotten familiar with it, you'll see it's actually going to make your life easier and quicker, because instead of having to go to 3 or 4 or 5 different portals and stuff to go and manage 3 or 5 different things, you can go to one location and configure like 4 or 5 different things from one location. Now, doesn't that sound convenient? That is the idea here, is to make you more productive, to make things easier to find and easier to use and configure, of course. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps doesn't require Microsoft 365 Productivity Suite licenses, but there are a couple of other prerequisites that you have to have in place. For example, guys, every user protected by Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps must have a license. Yeah, go figure. You must be a global administrator or security administrator in Azure Active Directory or Office 365. Now, the global part I'm mentioning because that's part of the course, but obviously that is, well, obvious. I mean, obviously, if you are a global admin, you can do whatever, they can do anything. So I would say pay more attention to the security administrator part of things, because that's the one they're probably going to ask you in the exam. To run the Defender for Cloud Apps portal, use Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, or, well, Apple Safari. I don't even know why they mentioned that in the course, but I'm mentioning it to you guys. So in other words, what they're saying is you need to go and use a browser to go and access the portal. I'm not sure why they mentioned different kinds of browsers there, but they did. So all I'm going to say is use a browser. That's what's going to allow you to access the portal. Well, folks, that really is it. That is the 4th section. Really, really flippin' short. It is. I'm glad, because my voice is disappearing. I can feel it. If you guys have enjoyed this module, if you feel like you've learned something, please do me a favor and give your homie a like. Like I said, it pushes this video out to more folks that actually needs it, so we'll be helping more people out there. So give the video a like. If you feel like you want to watch module 7, or if you want to know when it comes out, or if you want to watch some other content, maybe consider subscribing, otherwise you might miss it. And guys, before you disappear on me, just a shout out and thank you to all the sponsors. If you'd like to do that as well, you can find that information in the video description down below. There is a list of the Patreon sponsors. Guys, thank you very much. I appreciate you very much. There's a list of the PayPal sponsors. Also appreciate you guys very much. Thank you for the donations, including the coffees and the milkshakes and all that stuff you guys have been buying. So if you guys would like to do that as well, for the new guys, just check the video description down below, below the timestamps. And then lastly, guys, before we disappear, if you would like, and if you're interested, I do have a Discord server. It's called Free IT Training. So it's a community of like-minded people in IT that are either studying or that have studied or just want to help people studying. You'll even find me in that server. And yeah, that's the idea. So if you want to help other people study, if you finish this course, feel free to go and help people there out. If they've got questions, you can go and answer it. If you yourself have questions about this course or any other course, go join the community, go ask your questions there. Either myself or someone will definitely help you there. So it's a great community to go and just, well, study together. Discuss topics. If there's anything you're not sure about, you can go and discuss it there. Alright, folks, I hope you have an awesome day. I will talk to you again in Module 7 of the Microsoft MD-102.